I became a Christian at a very young age. I think I was only a child of about 6, and so I grew up really with a Christian faith. But one book that I remember reading as a teenage Christian was Oswald Chambers' My Utmost for His Highest, which I think many Christians of my generation knew very well. It was a book of daily readings from Oswald Chambers, and I think using that for several years in my own personal devotion and quiet time inculcated in me a sense of the seriousness of the Christian life. That there was a level of dedication, of commitment, of taking God seriously in faith and obedience, which I absorbed from that book. I'm not saying it sort of made me into an extra special Christian, but just that it fed the deep down sources of my soul to realize that being a Christian was a serious matter, and that there had to be a direct relationship with God in which you took sin and sanctification and these matters of personal holiness and obedience seriously. As I say, it didn't always lead me to live that way, but it gave me that as a sort of compass of the way I should live. So My Utmost for His Highest was quite formative in some ways in my own spiritual growth. Another 2 or 3 books that I read as a student, when I was a student in Cambridge, were books released in the 1970s, I think, by an Australian Christian psychiatrist called John Hercus. And the first he wrote, I think, was called Pages from God's Casebook. And then a sequel to that, More Pages from God's Casebook. And what he did was to take some of the Bible characters and to converse with them in the books, almost as if they were his patients, as if he was sort of analyzing their childhood, their adulthood, what we can learn about them in the Bible. And he brought these characters to life. And particularly the one, More Pages from God's Casebook, was on the 3 major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah and Ezekiel. And that, I was studying theology at the time and trying to get to grips with the theology of Ezekiel, you know. But these books brought the characters to life by the use, I think, of sanctified imagination or controlled imagination. In other words, he was, yes, using imagination, but it wasn't contrary to the Bible. It wasn't just sort of creating something out of nothing. You could see where he was getting it from. You could relate his imaginary conversations to actual texts in the Scripture. And I was fascinated with these, and they brought these characters to life for me. And I remember almost vowing to myself at the time, I must teach and preach in such a way that I bring the Bible to life, as John Hercus has done. Let me never be boring in handling the Bible, because I think that must be one of the greatest crimes against humanity, is to make the Bible boring. So I don't know whether I've succeeded, but somehow, even when I've written a thing like my Bible Speaks Today commentary on Ezekiel, I remember the way John Hercus had handled that prophet, and I just used some of his techniques in trying to bring the book to life. So quite influential at a time when I was a theological student, not, quotes, a theological book, and yet certainly one which made the Bible live for me and made me want to do the same for others.